All right. So just kind of for the record, if you'll tell everyone who you are and kind of what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. My name's Hayley Grigg, and I'm one of the hosts for classical KUCO, KBCW, and KCSC. We are a local classical radio station that operates out of the University of Central Oklahoma. We're stationed in Edmond, but we kind of broadcast in the OKC area, and then the McAllister area, and then the Woodward area. So those are our three little broadcast zones that we try to reach out to. So
Yeah.
that's kind of in a nutshell what we do. I'm an on-air host, and then I'm also the director of public service announcements. So I kind of reach out to people in the community and get a sense of what's going on, and then try to get that information out to our listeners so they can be involved. So
Okay.
in a nutshell, that's what I do.
Yeah. So y'all aren't corporately owned or part of a big network. It's
No, we are privately owned and operated. We're a public radio station, which means that our funding comes primarily through listener support. We're actually in a couple weeks going to go into our fall fund drive, and I think they said we get 60% of our income from our listener support, which is a
wow.
really big percentage. So we're a public station, which means we don't run like commercials
Hmm.
or anything like that. So really, when you listen to our station, you just hear the music. So,
Right.
so yeah, no big corporate sponsorship or anything. It's just a pretty small operation, but we were pretty dedicated and we like what we do. So,
Yeah. Having lived up there, I did listen to it,
yeah.
a little bit here and there, just, a little,
Uh-huh.
like the only station. But but yeah, it's neat to hear that it's still going, and it's nice to have you working there, kind of have the inside track here.
Yeah.
So when y'all start setting your programming, kind of a daily program list, is that something that's decided by the local station manager, or kind of what's the process there?
Yeah, we're very proud of being the only locally programmed classical music station in Oklahoma. It's something that really means a lot to us. So, one of my colleagues, Kent Anderson, is our programming director, and he's the one that sets our program logs. He does that a month at a time. So, at the end of the month, I'll get the entirety of November all in one one big email file. And so, yeah, I know what we're going to play at any point through October, which is really great. And so what he does is he coordinates a lot with like record labels to get the albums in. We don't operate digitally. Everything we do is through
Ah.
CDs, which is kind of fun. I mean, I'm a nerd, so I love just like digging through the CD racks. we
Uh-huh.
have we have over 12,000 CDs in our library, so
Wow.
he goes through and he kind of organizes and sets our daily playlists that we operate off of. So, yeah, we have somebody in our station that is in charge of all of that for us.
Okay. So do y'all also bring in some syndicated programs to fill some of those time slots as well?
Yeah, we do. There are three full time on air personality people, and we have a business director, and that's not enough to cover 24 hours, 7 days a
Yeah.
week. So, we also, in addition, we do live broadcasting from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. And then we have four other types of services that we offer: modules, which are short little programs like minute and a half to 4 minutes long about various topics like science or engineering or stuff like that.
Sure.
And then we have like syndicated shows that are recorded and that we subscribe to and then air to our
Mm-hmm.
listeners. One of the ones that I love is called Exploring Music, and it comes out of Chicago, I believe, and it's just an hour long that we air every day at 11, every day at 7, that just talks about music. And then we
Huh.
have an overnight thing that we do through one of the big radio corporations that you can just tune into them and then they'll take us overnight because I don't
Yeah.
want to do the overnight shift. And then we also do some live broadcasts like tonight. Actually, at 8 o'clock tonight, we tune in live to the LA Philharmonic, and then we have some evenings with the New York Phil or things like that. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, we also offer some other sorts of things so that you can hear some live programming
Hmm.
and some other stuff like that, which is pretty fun.
Very neat. So a pretty big
Yep.
variety of stuff that y'all
Yeah.
play on a regular basis.
We really do try to have a bit of everything. So some of our programs that we offer are a little more specified than what we do just from time to time. We have a show that is all organ music that plays Sunday mornings that people really like. We
Ah,
have like a classical guitar, or one of my favorite shows is The Score, which we get from Portland, I believe, and that is just film music. So
oh,
1 hour every week just deals with film scores, and that's a lot of fun to listen to. So
yeah.
good variety.
Okay. So the process for if you're picking an individual piece of music, for instance, is it just the one guy, or does he kind of reach out to the rest of the staff and go, "Hey, do y'all have any suggestions?" Or
Well, Kent pretty much has that under control. He takes care of that. But I know that part of what goes into his process is he tries to honor composers on their birthday.
Mhm.
So as we're going through, I'll have a little note, born this day in 1728. And I'm like, ooh. So that way, every composer that's in our catalog, no matter how obscure they are, is at least going to get aired once a year.
Ah,
Which
very
is kind of fun.
nice.
And then if we get new releases, that also gets some priority. He tries to get, once we get a new release in, he tries to get that on air pretty quickly
Mhm.
to kind of promote the album and promote the label and such. So,
Okay.
so that's part of what goes into it. And then from there, a big part of it is just stacking everything so that the timing works out right.
Right.
Because we try to start clean at the top of every hour. There are a couple times we don't and we wrap around, but for the most part, we want to end everything right at 2 o'clock on the button, right at 3 o'clock on the button, so that we don't get completely out of control. So I think he kind of drops in like, okay, birthday, new release here and there, and now I need a piece that's 18 and a half minutes long, and he'll go through and look at our library, and he can organize it through a software program where he can sort and search for certain things, and then he'll just be like, oh, we haven't heard any Baroque music in a while. Here's this. Let's throw that in. So that's kind of the method to the madness, I think. So
Okay. So when you say new music, is that like new compositions or a new recording of an old composition?
it can be a bit of everything. A new release is just a new CD that a label has put out. And what's nice is sometimes you'll get music that's never been recorded before, brand new music. I played one not long ago that was by James Horner, the film composer who's passed away not very long ago, but it was one of the
Right.
last things he ever wrote, and they just recorded it for the first time, so it was fun to get to share. But then sometimes we'll get some reissuing, which means there are great recordings that have just been on like old LPs or records or something. Now they've converted to CDs and they're selling new. So sometimes we'll have some of that.
Ah. Well, we talked about it earlier, but the people that are watching since I started recording, they don't know that my little boy is over here watching our interview as well. I've got to look for a pacifier real quick.
Well, while you do that, I'll mention some of the new stuff that we've gotten. One
All
of the
right.
things that cracked me up was we got this CD called Sleep. I guess there's a guy that's created this 8-hour-long composition meant to be performed overnight. So
Oh
when
my.
you go to a performance of this work, instead of having chairs, you as an audience member get like this cot, and you go to sleep while the music plays for 8 hours long. So
Wow.
it's selections from Sleep. It's not the whole 8 hours, but it's bits and pieces. So sometimes we do get brand new, just recently composed music, which is really fun to get to share something that no one's heard before.
Yeah. That's a really interesting concept, that idea, but
Yeah.
I mean, is that with new music that's coming out, especially in the classical realm, because especially when I talk to my students about classical music, in their minds they're thinking, the Baroque, the Renaissance composers that we've studied so far. Uh, does it tend to be more concept based, or are people really trying to come up with new melodies and new musical ideas?
I think it really kind of varies. I think we're at a place in composition where people are trying to be innovative, and it's hard to be innovative when you feel like, okay, we've had this music for 700 years, what's new?
Right.
one of the things that I think is really interesting is there's a new branch of classical music called electroacoustic music, which is a combination between like standard classical music with an orchestra and instruments, and then pre-recorded sounds. So you'll have up there with the orchestra somebody that's like playing a soundboard, and they'll have different sound cues that they incorporate. So
Yeah.
so some composers try to kind of stick in the kind of classical music genre. Others try to be a little more innovative. So I think we're at a place where it's really about the individual composer and what it is that speaks to them and what it is that they want to say. So
Yeah.
it really varies.
And so, kind of going with that idea of speaking to him or whatever, when the program director is picking kind of newer music, especially the stuff that's brand new compositions, is that kind of what he's going with, what speaks to him, or is he looking at maybe what's done well in the past for the audience, or?
I think one of the things that's really fun about our station is that we try to really have a wide variety. And with that, it means that we're not always going to appeal to everybody. There are some times that I put on a piece and it's like really extreme and out there, and I usually get phone calls that say, does anybody really like this music? But then you'll get a phone call from somebody that says, this is so interesting. I've never heard anything like this before. So he really tries to get a good variety. And then if you have something that's a little extreme and doesn't sound like music at all, but is very experimental, he follows that up with something like Mozart. Then it's like, okay, we've gone to the extreme. Now we're going back to normal a little bit. So yeah, it's a bit of what he likes personally, but then also wanting to kind of branch out into all that the genre has to offer.
Yeah. So you do still get phone calls, people asking, "What's that song we're hearing?" and all those sort of things.
Yeah. It was. I get that a lot. Not a lot, but it's really fun when we have somebody call in and say, "I've never heard that before. What is that? It's so cool. I wanna go look it up." So that's always fun for me.
Yeah, and that's something that, when I start thinking about radio stations and what has changed, when I was younger, it used to be really easy. If you didn't know the song, you called in, the guy picked up the phone and he went, "Hey," you asked him and he knew the song.
Yeah.
Whereas now, a lot of times if you call a station, you're going to get a secretary or, someone that may not even be listening to the station at that point in time. But yeah, they don't know. But I had that exact experience listening to a podcast just the other day ago. And you hear that piece of music and you go, I need to find out what it is. You can't make the phone calls, so you have to do the mad search of, Shazamming the song and all sorts of different stuff, and hoping to find it. So that's neat that y'all still have that personal interaction.
Do, and when the phone rings, it goes right to the broadcast studio. So if I don't answer, it means because I'm actually talking on the radio. And sometimes we'll get people call in. I had a lady call the other day, and she's like, okay, so you haven't played it recently, but there's this song that goes kind of like da 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 da. So I, was pulling out my ear training skills from sophomore undergrad and writing down her melody and running to all my colleagues like, what do you think this is? And we figured it out, and I called her back, and I was like,
hey,
that's Wagner, that's from Lohengrin. So
awesome.
So yeah, sometimes we get a call like that, which is kind of fun too. I can't always place it, but it's fun to kind of be that resource for people.
Yeah, absolutely. My other son is yelling at me from the other room. What, Judah? Speaking of classical music, he's watching Little Einstein, so he's telling me what the birdie is singing to right now. So
good.
I don't know what episode he's watching, but he's always singing something, which is great.
Yeah, we love that.
All right, so I guess kind of as a final question, and then if you've got anything else you want to share with us, I'll kind of give you a minute to do that. A lot of people talk about different media types that are dying out. Uh-oh. What's up? You want to come look at who I'm talking to?
Hey, Judah. Hi, buddy.
I'm talking to somebody. It stopped? It went off. Well, I'll have to fix it in a minute, okay? You want to go play with the football?
No.
Oh, you want to watch more Little Einsteins?
Yes.
Interesting interviews.
I watch some more Little Einsteins.
Okay. Well, I tell you what. Can you sit here and talk to Asher, and I'll turn it on in just a second?
No, I can't.
You can't.
No. I can't, Mom. Daddy.
Yeah, I bet you can.
Where's Mommy?
She's at work.
Go.
All right.
I want her to go.
I don't know if I should cut this part or not. It might make for good
I think kids might
laughs
enjoy
for everything. All right. So, you know, like I was saying, a lot of different media are kind of dying out, but you know, radio is fighting forward, so to say.
Yeah,
So,
it is.
so kind of
No, Daddy.
how relevant do you feel radio will be, you know, in the next 5-10 years?
Yeah. I think, now this is just me, and
Yeah.
I will admit that I'm a real nerd, and I'm not really kind of up on what's new and what's exciting as far as technology, but at least in my life, radio has always been really relevant. If anything, just I get in the car, I'm driving to work, I can turn it on and hear what the forecast is for the day. Or for me, as a classical musician, I can turn it on and maybe hear something I've never heard before, and that's exciting because you can kind of branch out a little bit and be introduced to something new that you are not really aware of or you wouldn't have found on your own. I think there's a place for radio in the future. I think maybe what radio looks like might change. I think that's part of what we try to do at our station is find ways to connect to people one-on-one. One of my colleagues produces a show called Performance Oklahoma, where she goes and records live performances that happen around the state and does interviews, and so then it kind of ties back to the community.
Yeah.
You know, I think there's a place for radio because it can be local, it can deal directly with who we are as Oklahomans, and but I think it still remains to be seen. I think podcasts are an exciting part of kind of getting auditory information.
Sure.
So it might be changing. I don't know, but we're not gone yet. We're still here. So.
Sure.
There we go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, is there anything else you want to share with kind of my students or anything else about radio or classical music in general? Or
I think probably the thing that I would want to say is that classical music is so often written off as something that's like a dead or a dying art. And that's very much not the case. It's very much alive and living, and there are new composers that are doing exciting things in the world. Like I mentioned before, electroacoustic music is really fun. Mason Bates is one of those composers who's writing and innovating using recorded, pre-recorded sound and stuff. So I think the thing I would ask for your students is just to keep an open mind and explore things that you think are fun, whether that's the Beatles, whether that's classical music, whether that's anything in between. I think if you keep your ears open and you listen to the world actively, you'll be amazed at what you can find. So that's what I would say to your students.
yeah, great. Well, I appreciate your time and you kind of sharing with us your experiences in the radio world, and you know, I know that, you know, I might share with them a little bit more of kind of, I don't think you were planning on ending up in radio, but you've, you know,
I really wasn't, but
still fits with all the, fits with all the classical music experience you've had. And,
exactly.
you know, I bet I haven't been to the city when you've been on air yet. I keep trying to catch it when I'm in the city and everything, but I'm sure you bring your own style and flair when you're up there.
I do try. So, and you can always listen online, classical, or it's KUCOFM.com. So
All right.
I'm on from noon to 3. I got to plug the station while I'm here.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I'm on from noon to 3 and then just kind of throughout the day. But yeah, it's a good place to be and I'm excited for it. So.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
You're sure welcome.
I want to click end on our recording.